A very good evening. On behalf of the University College of Law, Osmania University staff and students, it is my pleasure to introduce our senior most professor of Osmania University Law College, that is Professor G.B. Reddy sir. Sir is a lawyer turned academician. Sir is a proud alumnus of Law Department of Osmania University, having graduated from Osmania, LLB, LLM, and PhD from Osmania University. Sir studied PG Diploma in Human Rights from University of Hyderabad. He obtained PhD in Law from Osmania University in 1990 on the topic Supreme Court and Judicial Activism, its contribution in specific areas of constitutional law after 1980. Sir's area of specialization are constitutional law in LLM and judicial activism in PhD. He specialized in the area of intellectual property, researcher, publisher, and teacher. Sir holds a brilliant academic record with 3 gold medals in LLB and 1 gold medal in LLM. Still, today also, sir, nobody has broken your record. The
Thank
three
you. Thank you
LLMs
so much.
in LLB has not been broken by any student till now.
Thank you.
Apart from
Thank
being the first candidate to have qualified for UGC JRF in law from Osmania University in 1993, he practiced in the High Court of Andhra Pradesh for about 7 years before joining the Faculty of Law, Osmania University. He authored 22 well received books on law, including Women in Law, Intellectual Property Rights and Law, Copyrights in India, Practical Advocacy of Law, Right to Information and Law, and Judicial Activism in India. Two of his books, namely Women in Law and Judicial Activism in India, have been reviewed favorably in the book review section of the Hindu by Justice Krishna Iyer sir. Sir also published 69 articles on law published in standard law journals, and more than 30 articles have been published in newspapers. He offered 3 Swayam courses, MOOCs, that is, successfully in 2019 and 20 on human rights, IPRs, and environmental laws as course coordinator. He contributes to annual survey of Indian law published by ILI New Delhi on environmental law. Sir possesses rich administrative experience, having worked as the principal of University College of Law from 2005 to 2008, as head of the Department of Law for 2005 to 2008, as chairman BOS in law for 2017 and 18, and Dean Faculty of Law, Osmania University from 17 to 2019. During his tenure as head of the department, the Osmania University introduced LLB 5-year integrated course at University College of Law and PG College of Law, Osmania University, and LLM courses like intellectual property rights, alternative dispute resolution, and ITEL were introduced at University College of Law, and also PG Diploma in Cyber Laws. He was primarily instrumental in introducing the compulsory internship program for LLB students in Osmania University jurisdiction during 2017-18 as Chairman Board of Studies. A visiting faculty at several reputed institutions, including the Judicial Academy, Excise Academy, CCRT, NAARM, TS Police Academy, National Police Academy, Nalsar University of Law, National Industrial Security Academy, Mr. Marichanna Reddy Academy, APHRDI, Academic Staff Colleges, UGC, HRDCs of several universities. As a research supervisor, Sir successfully guided and produced 13 PhD scholars in law, including 2 foreign scholars, apart from more than 200 LLM students in their dissertations. As far as administrative positions are concerned, in the university, Sir is the first director of the legal cell of Osmania University, joint director of University Foreign Relations Office, that is UFRO, Osmania University, and coordinator of the Osmania University Center for IPRs and Patent Facilitation Services. At state level, Sir was the co-convener of the AP LawSet and PG LawSet for 2014-15, member of the Telangana State Legal Services Authorities and Hyderabad District Legal Services Authorities. Apart from that, he is also a member of AP Consumer Protection Council, visitor to Charlapalli Central Jail, member of several important committees of PS CHE, that is higher education, and also the syllabus committee of TSPSC. Sir is a life member of the Indian Law Institute, the Institute of Constitutional and Parliamentary Studies, New Delhi, and the American Studies Research Center, Hyderabad, presently OUSIP. Sir participated in several national and international seminars, workshops, and conferences on law and allied subjects, and visited Japan, Malaysia, Singapore, South Korea, and Thailand. At present, Sir is chairman of Bioethics Committee of CDFT, Hyderabad, and Institute of Genetics and Hospital, OU, member of Academic Council of Nalsar University and NUALS, Cochin, member of Board of Studies in Law of Central University, Karnataka. He is also the Dean Faculty of Law of Telangana University and Shatavahana University, Karimnagar, since 2017. Sir has been the convener of the TS LawSet and TS PG LSET for the years 2019 and 20. He is also the International Student Advisor of OU, Director UFR, that is. Sir strongly believes that in academics, it is the performance which would matter and not pretension of any kind. Moreover, he is a good human being.
Thank you.
Now, I welcome you, sir, for the 10-day national program on effective teaching, learning, and research in law, COVID-19 challenges. Sir is going to speak on effective teachings of intellectual property rights. With this brief introduction, I once again wholeheartedly welcome you, sir, for this session.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Vijay Lakshmi, for giving a very generous introduction. As far as my topic is concerned, that is intellectual property rights and the effective teaching thereof, I strongly believe that we require certain special skills and special efforts in order to make the teaching of intellectual property rights more interesting. And probably during COVID time, what could be done, I will try to explain towards the end of my presentation. But as far as the teaching of intellectual property in various institutions is concerned, like not only in the law colleges, but also in the management, in technology. For example, from Rajiv Gandhi Institute of IPRs, Center for IPRs in IIT Kharagpur, their main focus is on intellectual property rights and LLB with such honors. So we need to, in fact, expose ourselves to certain, emerging areas, and we need to inculcate a new kind of, in fact, research for effectively disseminating the knowledge in relation to intellectual property rights. And why we should teach intellectual property is too late in the day. I presume that everyone who is participating in this workshop knows fully well about the growing importance of intellectual property rights. And the same cannot be undermined even during the COVID era, especially after February and March. And for the last almost 20 years, dear friends, I always start with a wonderful quotation. That is, for more than a century, the world's wealthiest man has been an oil worker, and today he is a knowledge worker. This statement was made by Bill Gates way back in 1997. Not Bill Gates, but in reference to Bill Gates by an economist called Lester C. Thurow. And during the last 20 years, I never forgot to mention this statement in any class, whether it is diploma, LLB, LLM, or any special class on intellectual property rights. What I'm trying to emphasize is not only the economic significance of intellectual property right, but a person who could convert knowledge into property, knowledge into wealth, could become the richest man. Of course, intellectual property also serves a public purpose that I will try to discuss a little later. Then intellectual property comes from the imagination, the person's imagination. And, in fact, when we imagine things, then only, we create inventions. We come out with new intellectual, products. And that's what Albert Einstein said. Another important aspect, because with regard to intellectual property rights, I always come across statements like, probably the teachers can't be really teaching this subject. Only the practitioners can do much better. This is one. Only the authorities can disseminate the knowledge in this area much better. Our chartered accountants can value intellectual property much better. Fine. At the same time, I strongly believe that intellectual property belongs to all, one. Its dissemination also is the duty of one and all, the second one. The third one is that intellectual property should not be confined only to the precincts of the so-called elite, not the corporates alone, not the industry alone, even universities, the schools, the societies, in fact, the tribal groups, indigenous communities, all of them should, in fact, share the intellectual property, should be the beneficiaries of intellectual property in the larger public interest. And this is the precise reason why, the National Intellectual Property Policy 2016, makes specific reference to the creativity and innovation, and which should be stimulated by intellectual property for the benefit of all, not for the benefit of Bill Gates alone, for the benefit of all. Then, Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji also, in fact, set a wonderful tone to the Science Congress of 2020, saying that innovate, patent, produce, and prosper. So the emphasis is on innovation. Innovation is not invention. I think there are number of friends who specialized in this particular area who are among the participants. They know much better. Invention is maybe a kind of innovation sometimes, but innovation is something different. Then one has to innovate, one has to patent, produce, and prosper. There is a little difference, I think subtle difference, which sometimes gets lost. Then when we look at the growing importance of intellectual property, I already mentioned that in the good old days, next slide please. In the good old days, we used to mention that knowledge is power. Today, the knowledge is not only power. Vidwan, pujyate. Always the Vidwan is, respected. Fine. Knowledge is respected. Wherever it is. Knowledge doesn't belong to X, Y, Z, irrespective of the background. Same is the case with regard to, the property. Knowledge also can be converted into property. Knowledge is property. It's not only the power. That's what I'm trying to say. And that is intellectual property. That becomes wealth, and which can be used for the benefit of one and all. And we always mention that during the last, let us say, about 6 centuries, right from 17th century, not 16th, from the century of scientific revolution, then to the political revolution, then to the industrial revolution, then to the, in fact, the information revolution. Now we are in the century of knowledge revolution. 21st century is described as the century of knowledge revolution. So it categorically mentions about the takeaways from this particular knowledge revolution. Everything is revolving around that. We talk about knowledge management. We talk about knowledge industries. We talk about, in fact, knowledge, enterprises. There are so many. This is one. And today, I think an increasing role is played by the knowledge industries. This must be, informed to our students. The importance of the knowledge and how it can play an important role in industries like whether it is entertainment industry, software industry, or pharmaceutical industry, or, because ultimately today you see everyone is talking about COVID vaccine and who are working for it, right from China to, Gamaleya Institute in Russia to our own Bharat Biotech. It is the scientists, it is the researchers. So pharmaceutical industry doesn't run only based on the bulk drugs, but also the new inventions, new chemical entities. So there comes the knowledge. Then another important aspect is that international trade and intellectual property go together. Yesterday, Professor Balkrishna Reddy must have explained about the link between international law, international trade law, and TRIPS agreement, so on and so forth. And intellectual property has no boundaries. All of you are aware of it. And what is happening in one country can be easily accessed in other country, whether it is with regard to a patented invention or copyrighted subject matter or a trademark. We talk about transboundary reputation, this and that. So globalization and international trade have increased the importance of intellectual property. And in fact, our students must know that the approach towards intellectual property rights before TRIPS was something, and after TRIPS is something else. So that clearly, highlights the importance of globalization and international trade. Another important point, most of the, in fact, students or even general public believe that intellectual property is related only to technology, which may not be the case. If that is the case, most of the inventions were made in the good old days, not by the technocrats, even by a common man. A common man also could come out with a wonderful invention which was patented. But today, in the 21st century, there is a fusion between technology and law. And a combination of these two will lead to further innovations, further inventions, more and more creation of intellectual property. And last point, as I started with the, world's wealthiest man, not now. Bill Gates was the wealthiest man in 1997. He may be in the top 10 or 15 today. It is not only the object of the intellectual property to create wealth, but also to balance the interests of private rights and public interest, both. And in fact, I think it has to be a fine balance. And if you are a modern intellectual property law teacher, you will refer to what Competition Commission of India is saying, what Income Tax Appellate Tribunal is saying, what Intellectual Property Appellate Board is saying, right? So what I'm trying to say is that whether it is anti-competitive practice, especially when there is, monopolization of intellectual property, no doubt, it's a limited monopoly right. But still, there are areas where public interest comes to the fore. Recently, I had an occasion to judge one of the online moot court competition along with one of my good friends, Mohan Krishna. And, we found that the students were trying, the student mooters were trying to emphasize on the need of public interest, protection of public interest, even in terms of, exporting certain, patented or in fact unpatented products and all. What I'm trying to say is that a balance has to be struck between these two. And we have to emphasize in front of our students the necessity to strike the balance between private rights and the public interest. Because you see, I think I give an example. When we talk about the only compulsory license which was issued in India in 2012 for a patented invention, that was with regard to blood cancer. The patentee was Bayer. It is still the, Bayer, which is the patentee. But it was selling the medicine at a cost of around 3 lakh rupees. 3 lakh rupees per patient per month. a country like India can ill afford to in fact, spend so much. We are not a poor country, but at the same time, we are not so rich to spend on one patient 3 lakh rupees. So the cost was, in fact, unaffordable. Ultimately, a compulsory license was issued at the instance of a Hyderabad-based pharmaceutical company, Natco Pharmaceuticals, and today the same drug is available for about 6 to 7,000 per patient per month. Here, the public interest could be, gauged, and it could be easily protected. Very unfortunately, that was the only solitary compulsory license granted so far, to the best of my knowledge. This is one important aspect. Now, coming to the teaching of IP, I'll go to the next slide. There has been a paradigm shift, I think, which all of us must understand. What is this paradigm shift? Let me explain something about myself as a student and a teacher who began teaching in sometime in 91, 92. Immediately after LLB, I started teaching. But at that time, neither the subject was taught as an independent subject, right? And at the same time, there was no specialization which was offered in almost any university for that matter. So there was no separate subject on intellectual property rights. Second thing was that it was taught peripherally as a part of law of contract, especially when we talk about, the licensing and other agreements. Then similarly, law of torts. Even today, in fact, a teacher of law of torts can specifically focus on intellectual property for the simple reason that you have a wonderful chapter called injurious falsehood. We have a concept called passing off and maybe other similar issues. Then patents can be taught, copyright can be taught, trademarks can be taught, but it is only as part of law of torts, not as an individual subject. Same was the case with law of crimes. In fact, under the Trademark Act of 1958, many of the criminal provisions have been taken away from the IPC. Otherwise, right now, property mark under Section 479 Indian Penal Code is one of the important areas. But difference between trademark, property mark. So it was part of civil procedure also, like, what kind of injunctions could be obtained, what kind of relief could be obtained in the case of infringement of intellectual property rights. So what I'm trying to say is that those days there was no independent subject. Today it's not like that. Intellectual property law has emerged as an independent subject, and it is an independent subject of teaching. And intellectual property law, intellectual property rights, again there are differences. There are there are three important stages which I will try to explain. Then in the 20th century, towards the end, maybe towards the end of the 20th century, this subject has emerged, at least in India, as an independent subject. Result is because of the liberalization, privatization, and globalization. Then the WTO and TRIPS agreement, so on and so forth. And today, even Bar Council of India prescribes it as one of the important subjects to be taught. In LLM, there have been specializations, in intellectual property law. Then again, we have diplomas offered exclusively on this particular subject. Then not only law, but also management and other disciplines. They also take care of intellectual property. The interdisciplinary nature of intellectual property, in fact, makes it an invaluable asset, not only to lawyers, but also to the people who are involved in science, technology, humanities, arts, management, whatnot. And in fact, Professor Shiv K. Kumar, you may not be knowing his name, but he was one of the most eminent English professors from Hyderabad. He fought a case against Holy Faith International, which was a Hyderabad-based publisher, regarding publication of some of his works and the inclusion of them in some books. What I'm trying to tell you is that an English literat, an Urdu scholar, an artist, a snake charmer, everybody is associated now. That is the point. Then another important aspect is the transnational character of intellectual property. Intellectual property is in the form of information. I keep on saying this. Intellectual property is in the form of symbolic information in case of trademarks, aesthetic information in the case of industrial designs and even architecture, then technological information in the form of patents, and expressive information in the form of copyright. Ultimately, it's the information. Then how can we, withhold this information or confine it to certain, four walls or boundaries? So it is going beyond the territorial boundaries. The net result is you have internet domain. With the internet, revolution, with the telecommunications revolution, transboundary reputation. Today, if somebody uses Bench as a mark for some local product, Bench people will come and sue us because Bench has a transboundary reputation in more than one, many countries. And there are number of inter-country disputes also with regard to intellectual property. And for your information, India and Pakistan fought the case of Basmati with a Texas-based company in the middle of 1990s. And they initially agreed to file for a joint GI, geographical indication of goods, because Basmati is grown in both the countries. Later on, India registered its own. Pakistan dragged India to WTO dispute settlement body. There are any number of cases like this, which are witnessed in international fora. This is the precise reason why you have to see the paradigm shift. Then I'll go to the next slide, please. How the intellectual property teaching can be more effective. There is a need for expertise. Everybody can be an expert, let me tell you. At one point of time, I used to say, either everyone is an expert or nobody is an expert in intellectual property, because it is wide open to one and all. And many of you must be knowing much better than me, to be very humble. Now, there are four important aspects in order to be an effective teacher of IP, or for making IP teaching or intellectual property teaching more effective. For example, need to realize the object of IP teaching. Why we have to teach intellectual property? I mentioned already. One is dissemination of knowledge, no question about it. Or in fact, to equip or to improve the capacity of the administrators, technocrats, so on and so forth, fine. Then to inculcate the knowledge of intellectual property even among the young children, among the stakeholders. So what exactly is the object? Who are before us? Why we are teaching is one issue. Then need to know the target group. I think this is common to all the subjects, not necessarily intellectual property. Who are before us? If you teach school kids about intellectual property by, in fact, referring to some of the most technical terms like patent pools, patent trolls, etc., they may or may not agree. Therefore, who are before you? Are they the students who are exposed to this particular area for the first time? Are they technocrats? They may be very sound in technology, but they may not be knowing much about the value of their intellectual property. Are they the authorities? Because you see, many people, I have a good friend in biotechnology engineering department, biomedical engineering department of OU, who was selected as an examiner, patent examiner. And he asked me whether I should, join patent office or Usmania University. Of course, I suggested him to join patent office, but in biotechnology, bioengineering department, medical engineering department. What I'm trying to tell you is that these people, once they become authorities, how to, in fact, improve their knowledge. So what are their requirements? Innovators, for example, a group of innovators. For example, take the case of Telangana government initiative. And they want to encourage innovation. So what are their IP, intellectual property needs? And entrepreneurs. Because most of them, for example, they need trademark registration. Some of them want to, register their industrial designs, which is a compulsory thing in order to get the protection. So all of them need intellectual property. Therefore, the level of teaching, the depth of teaching should vary depending on the target group. Same is the case with any other subject. Then clarity on what to teach. For example, recently I have been asked by one university which offers only engineering courses. Of course, some MBA courses are also offered. What they asked me is to teach a particular topic called cost of cyber crimes and IPR. And to whom? To the third year students of engineering. Not simply IPR or cybercrime, cost of cybercrime, then IPR. I must relate to both of them. Introduction must be given, so on and so forth. What I'm trying to tell you is that I can't teach them like I teach the law students. They're engineering students. So, the concepts have to be taught. Some overview of the law must be given. Like, whether we have to teach the management. If you are teaching the innovators or entrepreneurs how to manage their intellectual property, valuation of intellectual property. What is the value of Charminar cigarette? I don't know whether it is in the public domain or not. Similarly, vigilance, IP vigilance, then IP enforcement. It depends. Last one is adopting the best method of teaching. During COVID period, there are a number of challenges. I think Department of Law, Professor Vinod Kumar, as the head of the Department Law, has done something wonderful. Professor Vijay Lakshmi in the first course has done something, wonderful to overcome the difficulty created by COVID. Okay, online classes, online workshop, training program, bringing some of the good brains together and all. But when we are teaching intellectual property, is it only classroom teaching? Is it by way of internship? Is it by way of drafting some specifications or claims? So these things must be kept in mind. Is it a case study method? Is it a case law method? These are the 4 things which must be kept in mind by every intellectual property teacher. Now, I'll come to the next slide. The attributes of good intellectual property teachers. Let me tell you, as academicians, we always face certain criticism. They say that, they are only academicians. They have only theoretical knowledge. I don't think so. I think many of the academicians also come from the practical background. Even now we are associated with more than one law firm, directly, indirectly, whatever it is. We try to do some consultation work also. We know the nuances of litigation. That's a different issue. But a typical law teacher mostly, in fact, faces this. Therefore, how to become a good IP teacher? Some of the attributes. For example, a sound jurisprudential knowledge, which is a sine qua non for making this intellectual property teaching, in fact, more, clearer, with greater clarity, greater, precision and all. For example, the theories of intellectual property are very important. Before that, the theories of property are important. When we talk about the labor theory of property, economic theory of property, Marxian theory of property, utilitarian theory of property, certainly, intellectual property, why, in which particular mold it falls, and according to which theory it has to be protected, public interest has to be protected, all those things will be understood. Second thing is about the rights, about the duties. Last year, in fact, this year also, there was a case filed by Dabas, a company in UK, United Kingdom, and also before European Patent Office. And this is an artificial intelligence created company which is claiming intellectual property rights. It's an entity, not even company, not human beings. It's an artificial intelligence created entity. Whether it is capable of rights and duties, whether monkey is capable of, rights and duties, if it is taking a selfie and selling and its owner or someone else is selling the photo. If a pig is painting, then who is having copyright? No doubt it looks very, very interesting and we laugh at these things. But there is a jurisprudential dimension also, which we have to keep in mind. That is one. Then other point is understanding of interdisciplinary nature of IP. No intellectual property teacher will be really successful if the understanding is confined only to one particular area. Therefore, common ground for social sciences, like, economics, for instance. Economics also teaches intellectual property, and lot of issues can be traced to the economic aspects. There's an economic incentive theory, economic reward theory, right? Then arts, languages, science, engineering, and technology. We should know a little of all, at least the basics. You need not be an expert in order to teach the intellectual property to our law students and others also. Another point is, intellectual property is an offshoot of many subjects, not one subject. Today it is an independent subject, I agree. But at the same time, one should know the basics of law of property. We start from classification of property, right? Then, we also have many other, important aspects. That is one. Constitution. In fact, there are constitutional dimensions of intellectual property. We have to touch upon, which legislature can enact a law. Then similarly, judicial review. There was a very good debate in the, Alan Oben's case pertaining to the judicial review of High Court and judicial review by IPAB, whether they are equal or not equal. Similarly, administrative law matters, international law. One should understand what is the principle of national treatment, what is principle of reciprocity, what is the principle of de minimis, what is the principle of de minimis, the principle of, in fact, there are so many other principles, independence of patents, independence of trademarks. One can go on and on. We need to understand these basic issues. So international law, contracts, torts, crimes, including the procedural laws. People talk about Ashok Kumar order, John Doe order, Mareva injunction, right? And there are number of other issues relating to that. So we have to be in a position to correlate these things. This is one important aspect. Then we have to keep in mind the other relevant factors as well. As I mentioned about, who is taught, how it should be taught, where it is taught, for what purpose it is taught, so on and so forth. Now, why do we need IP teaching? I think I already mentioned about it. I'm going to the next slide. I want to, inform all the friends that, when we are talking about intellectual property, we need to understand that it is not a new concept. Maybe teaching or research in intellectual property may be one of the emerging areas. Now it is very well established. The other one is about the, traces of intellectual property, the historical background. I always take the name of Justice G.V. Sitapati. When he was the law secretary to government of Andhra Pradesh, once he delivered a lecture where he spoke for the first time about something called Mrita Sanjeevani. You type Mrita Sanjeevani in Google, you will get so many, entries. There he was trying to mention about this mantra or potion, whatever it is, which was, in fact, actually invented by, Shukracharya. And to know this secret, Bruhaspati, the guru of so-called Suras, Devatas, he was sent there, and he tries to impress his daughter first. Through daughter, he impresses her father. Daughter takes it for love, different issue. Ultimately, he gets killed. He was revived by Mrita Sanjeevani. Ultimately, when, in fact, he was killed, he was burnt, his ashes were mixed in the liquor consumed by Shukracharya. When Shukracharya realized that he was in his stomach, he had no other option but to teach the secret of Mrita Sanjeevani. And thereafter, he rips open his stomach, comes out, of course, revives Shukracharya. And when the daughter says, you marry me, I love you, this and that, then he says, no, you are like my sister. After accomplishing his task, he says, you are like my sister. Then that sister gives, the self-claimed sister, in fact, she gives a curse saying that whatever knowledge you have acquired this way, it will not be of any use to you when it is most needed. So, point is, there are number of morals from this, but there is intellectual property, like, trade secret, whatever it is. Then the teacher of copyright law always refer to One of the sayings in 10 Commandments, Bible, thou shall not steal. That is the basis. And in India, of course, we are not so rigid about the copyright. Then you can go to many other developments, like we start with the first modern patent law in Venice, then statute of monopolies in UK, which is the precursor to the present patent law. First Patent Act of 1790. Even US Constitution also refers to patents, promotion of useful arts. Then the first intellectual property multilateral convention, that is Paris Convention of 1883. Then on industrial property. Then on literary and artistic works, we have the Berne Convention. On international registration of trademarks, we have the Madrid Agreement. Today, I think there are almost 30 such agreements, maybe more than 30 agreements, including Singapore Law Treaty, then Trademark Law Treaty, and many more. So we have to understand that intellectual property has been, acquiring increased significance in this particular era. Now, who should be targeted? I already mentioned. If you look at the IP value chain, you will come across 3 distinct steps. This was the issue, in fact, when we started intellectual property teaching in the late 90s or early century, part of this century. Because if you have the property, then you can talk about its protection. When you have not created, where is the question of teaching about intellectual property rights? So 3 things must be kept in mind. One is creation of the assets, IP assets. First, we have to create, whether we are importing from abroad, whether we are creating within India. This mind culture, is it resulting in some kind of traditional cultural expressions, or is it folklore? Is it some kind of indigenous systems of medicine, agriculture, etc.? Then how the modern inventions are made, all those things, first they have to be created. That's first point. Of course, we are living in a great country which realized a long time back that knowledge is free for all. I wish that, it remained that way. Unfortunately, it's not. Knowledge is never free. And during this COVID era, many of the parents are complaining now. Even tiny tots, they're paying lakhs of rupees for listening to online classes. Most of the times, parents are listening, students are sleeping. Knowledge is never free, please. Then, second one is protection for IP assets. Once you create, then you talk about protection. So, some of the IP assets automatically get the protection. Copyright springs into existence the moment the work is created. That's what we say in the case of copyright protection. Automatic protection is, conferred on that. Similarly, trademarks are also automatically protected. Only thing is, if you register, there will be a greater protection. Then active measures are required in the case of patents, geographical indications, industrial designs, so on and so forth. Once we protect, then we talk about the management. Here comes, for example, patent pools during COVID era. Now, for example, many of the patentees having similar patents in respect of similar, medicines which may supplement and complement each other, not the same. I'm talking about similar or in respect of the same area. They can come together in order to grant licenses to a third party for technical collaboration and all. That is patent pooling. It's a kind of management. And that comes during the third stage, where it is maintenance, commercialization, so on and so forth. This is one important point. Okay. Now, coming to the other relevant factors, I think I've already explained about, why do we need that IP teaching, who should be targeted, what should be taught, and how the IP should be taught, we'll discuss. Please try to understand that the student of intellectual property must know why the intellectual property is protected. Because, when people are talking about copyright, significant number of people are also talking about no copyright. That's saying no, in fact, copyright, it's copy left, or in fact, no copyright, no intellectual property. Point is, everyone look at Article 27 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, 1948. It categorically mentions about, under Article 27, everyone has the right freely to enjoy the arts, to share in scientific advancement and its benefits. So everyone, but that is in the scientific advancement and its benefits. Science should be used for one and all. That is why the government's power to acquire patents, the government's power to grant compulsory licenses, go for parallel imports, etc. comes. Second point is everyone has a right to protection of the moral and material interest resulting from any scientific, literary, artistic production of which he is the author. This is for the sake of copyright. So it is a human right. Seeking protection for the intellectual endeavor is recognized as a human right also under Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This point must always be kept in mind. Then another important point, increased need for IP protection. Today, the intellectual property needs to be protected due to the following factors. First factor is this: industrial societies have become information societies, and information societies have become knowledge societies. I said in the beginning. Then emergence of new technologies. Today, people are talking about artificial intelligence and law. When we are talking about artificial intelligence, one must to know what is, in fact, NLP, neuro language program and all, and machine learning, deep learning. So new fuzzy technologies. So there are so many things which are coming up today. Therefore, I think intellectual property associated with these technologies must be correlated to those technologies as to how best to protect them. Then another point I already mentioned is that increased share of knowledge. For example, you are talking about the intensive products in total world trade. Look at the intellectual property. Look at the costliest brand in the world today. It's Apple. Maybe people are talking about $250 billion or something like that. That is the worth of Apple trademark, which is a brand. So we need to, in fact, protect such well-known trademarks which have transboundary reputation. Economic globalization also is one of the factors. I think I mentioned about it. Then I already mentioned new instruments have come into existence. Next slide, please. Then, for example, what are the new legal instruments? When we talk about intellectual property, I mentioned that one of the benchmarks or turning points is the TRIPS agreement. And that is a trade agreement, international trade agreement, one of the 28 or 29 trade agreements. So there we talk about the minimum standards for IP protection. So TRIPS minimum standards, PMP. Sometimes we also talk about TRIPS plus protection. TRIPS plus protection, like in the case of copyright and all, we have that. Then covering all areas of intellectual property, almost 8 different kinds of intellectual property are recognized under the TRIPS agreement of 1994, and minimum standards of protection, all of them have been laid down in different provisions. Then similarly, the dispute resolution process also of WTO. There is an understanding between WIPO and WTO also for dispute resolution. Therefore, we must understand these. And today, I think this TRIPS agreement has more than 150. 148 is outdated number. And in the case of intellectual property, I think the teachers as well as the students must know that initially it was only a domestic area. From domestic area, it became some kind of an area of bilateral agreements, trilateral agreement. For example, on trademark protection, we always refer to Benelux Treaty, the treaty between Belgium, Netherlands, and Luxembourg. So from unilateral protection to bilateral protection to multilateral protection. Started with Paris Convention, that is as far as the protection is concerned, but trade related aspects started with the TRIPS agreement in 94. Today you have WCT, WPPT, whatnot. Another important point, why the intellectual property knowledge should be disseminated. Reasons are many. Today, intellectual property rights hold an important key for economic, cultural, and social development. Very unfortunately, during COVID times, many important festivals which are celebrated in a grand manner went unnoticed. But today, if somebody feels like eating Hyderabadi Halim, should we wait till Ramzan? Ask the proprietor of Pista House who led the Hyderabad Halim Manufacturers Association in getting the GI registered, and it's one of the success stories as far as GI is concerned. Intellectual property rights exploitation. You will find it in New York, you will find it in Africa, you will find it in India throughout the year, 365 days, 24 hours, because of the GI. So it's one of the key tools for economic development, cultural development also. So today people are talking about, vanilla ice, not vanilla ice cream. It's something related to a musical, album, music album. So cultural development, we are enjoying Kolavari song, but Kolavari song is copied from someone else. Of course, we say that it's some kind of fair dealing, fair use and all. Then social development also, I already mentioned. Pochampalli Ikat, for instance, what they say is that once it is registered as a GI in erstwhile United Andhra Pradesh, the fate of nearly 30 families has changed for good. Today, I think, they are in a better position to market their products with Pochampalli tag of GI. Same thing could be said about the Bengali Rasgulla, Odisha Rasgulla, which were recently registered separately. Another point is shaping the IP system to, take care of the domestic needs, traditional knowledge, indigenous knowledge. These are some of the issues. Our genetic resources and traditional knowledge systems. All of them are quite useful, quite helpful, even to take care of the domestic needs. Similarly, the intellectual property, as I said, has number of stakeholders. It may be the creators, it may be those who are exploiting it, it may be the beneficiaries, it may be access and benefit sharing. There are so many aspects. For all that, I think we need to understand their legal position and make them understand what their rights, what their duties, what they stand to gain. Now coming to the, I think this is a repeat slide. We can ignore this. Who should be targeted also can be ignored. Then I think we will proceed to, you can skip 2 more slides and come to who should be targeted. That is important. As I already said, when we are teaching lawyers, it is something. IP legal experts must be taught, in fact, some kind of intellectual property law, whether it is lawyers, legislators, should they know intellectual property? You can't say, because under Article 84 of the Constitution of India, there are no minimum educational qualifications prescribed. Therefore, in fact, they need not know. Even a semi-literate or not formally literate person also can become an MP or MLA. Fine. But should they not know something about intellectual property? For example, when India signed TRIPS agreement, there was a criticism that it is not only Mr. I.K. Gujral, the former PM, who was heading a committee. It is not Mr. Elamanchili Shivaji, who was a member of that particular committee. I think you can ignore this. Go to the next slide, right? Then, again, next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah, please stop here. Now, the question is this. When we are talking about, in fact, legislators, they must know the basics. That's the reason why, for example, United States Congress has an Office of Technology Assessment. It is not sufficient to train our 119 legislators or in the past 294 legislators by simply, heralding them into some big seminar hall and explaining with the help of some kind of PPT. That's not the case. I think, they need to be explained about the nuances of these issues. What happens if India signs, what doesn't happen if India signs, what are the gains, what are the losses, all those things. Judges also are taught today. We have had the good privilege of, taking a few classes in Judicial Academy on various aspects of intellectual property rights. Some of my colleagues also were given the same opportunity. So their issues, for example, one judge raised an issue some time back. Sir, clear difference between passing off and infringement. So we had to explain with the help of, few decided cases. Similarly, enforcement authorities, Customs authorities are concerned with copyright. Enforcement Directorate officials are concerned with copyright. Income tax officials are concerned. Let me tell you, sir, whether copyright licensing can be considered as some kind of goods or not. So authorities also have their own requirements. Then other group could be technical patent experts. So you're talking about patent attorneys. And in fact, a common man can't understand the language of these patent experts. It's highly technical, whether it is patent examiners, patent judges, patent attorneys. For example, if you want to qualify in the patent agent exam, then I think, one needs to have science, technology, and other background. Now, third one is about the enterprises and research centers. There also you require IP teaching. So entrepreneurs, for example, the Association of Lady Entrepreneurs of Andhra Pradesh, they used to conduct number of programs for the members of that particular one. FICCI, FAPSI, CII. Our own, student, Mr. Subhajit Saha, is heading the IP division of CII in Telangana. So they have their own, concerns about the intellectual property that they have to be cleared. IP managers. So those who manage IP, licensing, then, in fact, renewal, so on and so forth. Then the employees also. Last one is civil society. Society also stands to gain from intellectual property. So we should know what are the requirements of the civil society. So whether it is, for example, creators, they need to understand that. That's very important. Creators must understand. So the members of our Pochampalli family in Budan Pochampalli in Nalgonda district, I don't know in which district right now it is, if they find that their ikat is copied without any authorization by some machine created design or whatever it is, what rights they have, what remedies they have, these are the issues which we have to take care. The other one is, as I already mentioned, what should be taught. For example, intellectual property law experts, they need to understand the intellectual property law in the form of patents. Just general introduction to intellectual property is not sufficient. One has to explain the concept of patenting, the origins of monopolies, then again, how the patent law has developed. If I'm teaching Indian patent law, I can't do justice to my area unless I refer to the Rajagopala Iyengar Committee report of 1956. Just now one of the friends posted, I am not understanding anything. I said effective teaching of intellectual property rights. That's what I'm trying to teach. Towards the end, you can ask any question. I'll be too happy to answer. Right? Now, coming to trademarks, copyright law, designs, so on and so forth. This is the core technology, core area which is required. Licensing of intellectual property right. How the intellectual property rights are licensed. Licenses under the Easements Act. So, we need to understand that. Enforcement of IPRs, that is something else. International IP law also must be taught to the experts. To the enterprises and research centers, again, we have the different kinds of IPRs, organization of, industries in IPR, then valuation, IP valuation, IP accounts. Dr. Nandini asked a question, something about IP accounts and IP valuation. It's honestly speaking, ma'am, this is one area which is the most neglected, except in few law schools in India. And whether it is the chartered accountants or experts in, economics, I think, even managers, it is not the job of the law teacher alone. We have a different kind of management of intellectual property that way, accounting, management, and even valuation. Now, how should the intellectual property be taught? This is very important. Any subject can be taught, sir. There are experts, who say that I can teach any subject. For them, a big salute, I will not say anything. But a common man like me, an ordinary teacher like me, when I am teaching intellectual property, what do? Curriculum structure of intensive course. For example, how the intellectual property syllabus has to be structured to suit the needs of the persons. Then, for example, how different subjects which are special areas in that, like patents, trademarks, copyright, plant varieties. For example, if you are teaching intellectual property to an agricultural scientist or any person who is dealing with agricultural management, certainly plant varieties law must be taught. Biotechnology must be taught, right? Convention on biodiversity law must be taught. And traditional knowledge systems must be taught. Patents must be taught, like that. Then industry-specific courses could be computer and IP. Today you are talking about computer courses, number of computer related intellectual property. Recently in 2020, Delhi High Court gave a judgment in I think Farid Alani's case, where the Delhi High Court gave clear guidelines or go ahead for patenting computer related inventions also, CRIs, in consonance with the CRI guidelines of 2018. One has to keep in mind their requirements. Okay. Yeah, this is another important point. I'll come to that. Then pharmaceutical IP. When you are talking about pharmacy, is one of the areas where intellectual property is very important. So whether it is pharmacy researchers, pharmacy students, faculty, all of them need the courses related to them. Cross section, licensing of IPR. This is one area, important area. Enforcement of IPR, interdisciplinary courses, so on and so forth. So how should the intellectual property be taught? I'm coming to the last, then I'll take questions. Probably I think I'll do better by taking more questions. Otherwise, it appears to be Latin and Greek to some of my good friends, and not those who are already exposed to this area, maybe new area, therefore they are justified. Now, how should IP be taught? Go to the next slide, please. Complementary tutorials. That is very important. What is taught in the classroom is not the only thing, not the gospel's truth. And in fact, Mr. Srinivas Ravi is one among the participants and technical members. When I teach them, what I find is that even before I mention a particular phenomenon, particular concept, particular case law, within next to 2 minutes, he posts the information relating to that in their student group. So what I'm trying to tell you is that whether it is a lecture, whether it's a tutorial, all of them must be complementing the classroom teaching. Practical exercises are important because our students or products are not going to deal only with the copyright issues. They must know something about how to draft the patent claims. Therefore, whether it is TIFAC, whether it is CPUM, under DIP, I'll come to that, and how to draft a patent application. There are a number of forms under the patent rules which have to be downloaded and how they have to be drafted. Drafting of license contract clauses. License contract, how the license can be, just now I mentioned about patent to pools. So if there is a patent pool, how this contract clause must be added. Negotiation of licensing agreements. Pre-trial infringement litigation. That is also, another important aspect. Pre-trial, infringement litigation. Like even before litigation, what could be done? For example, we are talking about WIPO domain name dispute resolutions. I remember Dr. Nandini helped me in getting an article published in Journal of Indian Law Institute. Both of us were, the joint authors on internet domain names long time back, almost 10 years back. And she knows, like for example, you have the ICANN dispute resolution, right? I don't know. I'll answer that question. Something appeared on my screen. I'll come back. Okay. Now, the point is very simple. Like how, the dispute resolution process, the WIPO Arbitration and Mediation Center works for the sake of settlement of some of the disputes, especially in the case of infringement of domain names or resolution of domain disputes. Then mock trials, moot courts. I think, we need to have many more mock trials conducted in respect of intellectual property related problems. Same is the case with moot courts also. Then other one is internship in law firms. Many of our students today, they must be encouraged to do at least one internship in the law firm. That will definitely expose them to some of the practical aspects. Our national intellectual property offices, It may be IP management firms. IP management firms also, especially while drafting these deeds. Then one can also teach by supervising a research paper. It may be master's dissertation, it can be even PhD thesis. One can go for a research paper for publication. That's another important aspect. Then another point is about the case method of teaching and problem method of teaching. Both of them can be employed. Today, if you are a student of patent law and practice diploma from Nalsar Pro, you will find that most of the questions are problem based. So the student applies the knowledge which is acquired in respect of that particular area, then he learns a lot in identifying the problem, identifying the law, identifying the remedy, forum, so on and so forth. And another point is international law and commercial law approach. This is also equally important because intellectual property rights don't have any territorial boundaries. You know that. So what is happening in United States of America in the form of, let us say, Bilski versus Capos, sometime in 2010, there was a judgment. Subsequently, there are some more judgments on patenting of computer software programs. So what's happening in UK? What's happening in USA? What's happening in European Union, EPO? So all those developments, comparative law approaches, certainly software that I'll explain. Now, the need for continuing education of IP teachers. This is very important because late Professor N.R. Madhav Menon used to, always talk about not only the clinical legal education, but he used to talk about judicial education, education for judges, continuing need of education for judges. Now I will talk about continuing need of education for teachers in general, IP teachers in particular. How can we do that? We can go for individual research and joint research projects. We can go for publication of our research findings. We can go for, exchange of views. There can be fora, there can be blogs, so on and so forth. There can be international networks. For example, INTA, trademark practitioners, they know very well. Every year, they'll be very happy to go to one country or other in order to conduct seminars, conferences, moot courts, so on and so forth. So international networking, collaboration, Similarly, please try to understand that intellectual property decisions are not given only by the courts. Don't look at only patents and trademark cases. You have to look at the cases decided not only by the Supreme Court, High Courts, and some of the district courts. You must refer to the decisions of Competition Commission of India. Then intellectual, income tax appellate tribunal, intellectual property appellate board, maybe registrar of copyright, registrar of trademark, control of patents, right? Then I think this is my last slide, but I'll explain something else. The teachers of IPRs must always, because any teacher of IPR, the moment somebody talks about their suggestion, what they should be in a position, for example, copyright, at least 10 leading cases must come to their mind, whether it is R.G. Anand versus Deluxe Films relating to infringement of copyright or idea expression dichotomy, or Indian Performance Rights Society decision, or recent Rameshwari photocopying decision, photocopy works decision of Delhi High Court of 2016, or Eastern Book Company versus D.B. Modak. Then just now I mentioned about patentability of computer software. If it is a computer related invention, not simply software. Software cannot be patented, but it has some nexus with the machine, capable of transforming that machine into something else, information into something else. So machine and transformation test, one of the important tests has to be followed. In this year, 2020 itself, Delhi High Court gave a judgment, Farid Alani versus Union of India, regarding the patenting of computer programs and computer related inventions. If it is only computer program without any machine, that's different issue. Otherwise, you have to refer to this. This is an important judgment. Similarly, same is the case with regard to patents. Alois Woben's case, or Novartis case, there are so many, or N.R. Dongre, Whirlpool versus Whirlpool. Then There are certain must-read materials of literature on intellectual property. I think everybody should be in a position to address them, whether it is Copinger and Scone James on copyright. It's a classic. It will be a feast to you. Read 10 pages, you will feel like you are on the moon. Then another important point is, for example, Terrell on the law of patents. For the last 135 years, this is one of the leading books on UK patent law, referred all over the world. Then Nimmer on copyright. Nimmer is an authority on copyright. Then Lionel Bentley on intellectual property law. W.R. Cornish on, in fact, cases and materials on intellectual property. Number of WIPO publications, right? And number of websites can be referred to. WIPO, Spicy IP is the best source. In fact, we must thank late Shamnath Bashir for igniting such a wonderful initiative, a great source. Then ipindia.nic.in contains lot of manuals, patent manual, trademark manual, etc. dip.nic.in, this is another one. Then iprcommission.org. National Intellectual Property Policy of 2016, must read. Then there are number of journals, Journal of Intellectual, property rights, journals published on IPRs by NALSA, NUIOLS, and many other prestigious universities. And reports like patent and trademark cases, are English reports like RPC, report on patent cases. There are so many. So the point I'm trying to make out is that intellectual property teachers have to do a little more than what the other teachers who are teaching conventional subjects are concerned. All of them must be very strong, no doubt about it. During COVID era, you must understand that number of issues have come up in recent times. For example, when you are talking about the COVID issues, one must be in a position to understand public health concerns and intellectual property. What can the government do if there is an invention made? Should they wait for 3 more years to get grant compulsory license to some other one if these people are not granting license? That's one. So section 92 comes to their probably rescue. Another point is you have to look at the increased research activity in vaccines. Then exploration of indigenous medicines to treat COVID-19. Then number of inventions and innovations. For example, hygiene smart bag. If you wear that, then certainly, it alerts anyone who is very nearer to you, like, any COVID positive person. Temperature checker, telemedicine, online learning, video conferencing, ventilators, face masks, gloves, just you name it, there are so many. So what I'm trying to tell you is that during COVID, we have to employ all these techniques. At the same time, when we are solid rock teachers, solid rock researchers, and hard-working academicians, COVID or no COVID, I strongly believe that COVID is a passing phase. We shall overcome COVID by God's grace, but at the same time, we have to keep in mind the basics, the fundamentals, the nuances. Then IP teaching will be really wonderful, and IP teachers will always be, respected by all the concerned. This is a small presentation, dear friends. Thank you very much.
It's a question from Ms. Veena Shri Salam.
Okay.
Respected sir, as per the Global Times report, China has secured patent rights of corona vaccine at domestic level, now trying to secure at international level as well. Considering the current scenario, in this process, adherence to WHO norms plays an important role or not? If yes, then recently many other countries have accounted invention of vaccine without following the protocols of WHO. Isn't it an unethical practice to do so?
Fine, good question. First, we have to understand that there is no difference between a patent granted during COVID epidemic or before or after. First point, the essential conditions of patentability must always be complied with, and the patent offers only territorial protection. There is nothing like world patent and all. So therefore, if they are going to US and filing for a US patent, they have to follow what the US law says. but whether it is the US or China or wherever it is, same conditions have to be satisfied fully before any invention is granted patent. Second thing is there is nothing like fast tracking the patent. I wish that there is some such mechanism. Unfortunately, there is no such fast tracking. People have to wait for few years to get a patent. China may do it within its country. That's a different issue. That is also against certain norms. But I don't know whether they will really succeed in other countries. They may not. They may not. And WHO certainly is concerned about the public health. I agree. But at the same time, WHO cannot influence the patenting process, because it will be again dealing with the TRIPS requirements, the international commitments under various treaties, conventions, and the basic eligibility conditions have to be satisfied. So all these things will be taken care of. They can market, that's different issue, but patenting will definitely take some time.
From Palagiri Nitya Kumar. Sir, this was also asked by another participant. What is the present position of obtaining patent for software in India? Can software be patented in India? Or is it that they are protected under copyrights only?
Correct. If it is only software, computer programming, then it comes within the meaning of literary work. And as the questioner already mentioned, it is copyrightable. But if there is some attributes of invention like novelty, industrial application, especially industrial application and the computer program, like we are talking about source code, object code, then industrial application, then they can be patented. And that's what I said. Delhi High Court in Farid Alani's case gave a green signal kind of thing to patenting of some of the computer related inventions. If you say only computer program, TRIPS agreement says that they must be protected as literary works under copyright law. Berne Convention says the same thing. Indian copyright law also says the same thing. If it is an invention, we can explore the possibility of getting a patent after this Farid Alani judgment. A combination of both program, software and hardware may qualify for patent. If it is purely software, again, we have to go for copyright.
Next question, sir, from Mr. Ravichandra Yadav, okay, and also D. Srivani. Sir, what is the difference between brand, trade name, trademark, property mark, and trademark?
Okay, good. Property mark denotes the proprietorship of a particular thing. For example, if we are purchasing a steel utensil and we are getting our name inscribed on that, like GBR is a steel utensil, and that becomes my property mark because that denotes the proprietorship of myself in respect of that. So whether it is, for example, government vehicle, that will be a property mark, or the property of so-and-so private person. That is under section 479 IPC. You can look at that. Trademark is something different. Trademark is for the purpose, it has functional characteristics, advertisements. Then, it protects the goodwill of that particular company. Then, it also protects the consumers, and it distinguishes the goods of one from those of others. So, property mark may or may not be commercially exploited. Trademark is always exploited, applied to goods and services under the Trademarks Act. This is one important aspect. Second question is about branding. Every brand may be a trademark, but every trademark is not a brand. How? Because in order to convert a trademark into brand, extensive, advertisement, then marketing strategies have to be adopted. So only then it becomes a branded. You are talking about Van Heusen, Apple, Samsung, whatever it is. They are all brands, but they have not become brands overnight. When they started their operation in the market, they were unknown. They were only trademarks. But if branding is a technique of management, honestly speaking, branding of these marks and all, just look at the list of costliest brands in the world like Coca-Cola, IBM, Microsoft, so on and so forth. I hope I answered this.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, question from Ms. Neha Agarwal. Sir, the rationale for setting up of tribunals was to have experts to adjudicate on technical matters and expediency. However, the functioning of Intellectual Property Appellate Board proves otherwise. What is the right way forward to strengthen adjudication on IPR matters?
In fact, I agree with Neha regarding the purpose of tribunals. And IPAB is supposed to have the technical members and also the judicial members. But unfortunately, for a long time, when there was a technical member, there was no judicial member. Recently, one of our good friends, a student of University College of Law, who specialized in LLM IPR, also got selected as a technical member. But regular appointment, maybe having benches of IPAB, not only having one intellectual property appellate board, because now it is overburdened with even copyright also. Copyright, in the place of copyright board, IPAB has come to take over its jurisdiction, trademarks, patents. So in such a scenario, the best thing would be to have separate courts for intellectual property disputes. And with regard to the software piracy, copyright infringement, Nampally Criminal Court had a separate court only to deal with infringement of copyright cases. So we want such separate courts to be set up if possible, at least one in each district court. Then that might serve the purpose of adjudicating IPR disputes with the required expertise and expeditiously also.
Next question from Ms. Padmaja. May I know your thoughts on Personal Data Protection Bill?
In fact, Personal Data Protection Bill, I had an occasion to go through, and probably, right to privacy, once it has been recognized as a fundamental right under Article 21 in Justice Puttaswamy's case. Now we are talking about informational privacy, the other privacy, and I think there is one objection with regard to the corporates, about the corporate privacy exemption there too. But with regard to right to privacy as a human right and fundamental right, I think it is safe under the proposed law.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Next question from Advocate Rajuri Ramesh. What is the present role of geographical indication rights in India?
Sir, in fact, Dr. Chinnaraja Naidu, who is the Assistant Controller of Assistant Registrar of Geographical Indications in Chennai, he informed me the other day that there are more than 350 in a webinar like this, GIs, which have been already registered. But only problem is most of them are registered but not exploited. That's a real problem. So quality control is yet to be ensured in such cases. People are ready. For example, Bengali people were fighting with Orissa people regarding Bengali Rasgulla and Orissa Rasgulla. Now the question is how they are going to market. I see most of the GIs only in airports. I have seen in one of the South Indian airports some GI products displayed in one of the showcases. Fine. But how many of them are really marketed, and how many stakeholders are really getting the requisite benefit? That I think we need to understand. And registration process is good, but only thing is the exploitation of GIs for the purpose of quality control, for the purpose of getting certain benefits to stakeholders, that is still due. I personally believe that.
Yes, sir. Sir, next question from Ms. Pratibha Rathod. What was wrong when Patanjali declared the medicine on COVID-19 on social media?
What was wrong was that it was not a medicine at all. First point, because simply by saying coronil, they can't, under the Drugs and Cosmetics Act, in order to be qualified as a medicine, certain requisites are, essentially to be fulfilled. In the instant case, I would say Patanjali jumped the gun. That's the point. And if they really wanted to introduce a drug into the market, they have to go through clinical trials. Clinical trials, I mentioned just now, 4 stages. That's very important. Clearance from ethics committee. All those things have not been done. So they simply announced. This is nothing but, in fact, law students and teachers may know, in Hamdard Dawakana case, in fact, the law which was invoked was the Drugs and Magic Remedies Objectionable Advertisements Act, which was supposed to be violated. Same thing would be attracted here if the government is so serious about it. They shouldn't have done that. Without obtaining clearances from the concerned regulatory bodies, they can't announce, especially when the entire world is grappling with this issue. This would be, something of undermining the disease and, in fact, endangering a great number of people in the country. That is objectionable.
The last question, sir, from Palgiri Nitya Kumar. So if there is an infringement regarding a website in a different country, say USA, will our courts in India have jurisdiction to order stop using similar website?
The point is, private international law comes into picture. Second thing is, already there is a dispute resolution mechanism with regard to this WIPO Arbitration and Mediation Center. If both the parties are submitting themselves, I think it's known to all of you. But our country, whether it can grant the courts in our country, whether they can grant an injunction against the use of similar mark by the companies in other countries. No doubt, we can file a case. I don't think it's really effective that way. Certainly, case can be filed. Nothing wrong in that, because cause of action arises, not only here, there also. Both the country courts will have the jurisdiction.
Sir, a small follow-up question, sir. Last question. Sir, what if both trademarks are unregistered but popular with people in different areas of society?
Okay. If they are unregistered, what is the problem then? If they are popular and as well as unregistered, then honest and concurrent use exception comes. One is in Kashmir, other one is Kanyakumari. Then both of them may be permitted by the court, so long as there is no conflict of interest. There are any number of cases on that point. But if one is objecting the other, they say, is the area of marketing or business is same? Is the class same? Is the subclass same? Is there any likelihood of causing confusion in the mind of consumers? All those factors will be taken. But if they're totally separate, subject to certain conditions, saying that you be in Kanyakumari and other person should be in Kashmir, certainly, some kind of orders can be granted by the courts also, delineating their respective jurisdictions for commercial operations.
Sir, thank you so much, sir. Thank you for patiently answering so many queries, a flurry of queries actually.
Let me thank Dr. G. Vinod Kumar, the coordinator and head of the Department of Law, for giving me this wonderful opportunity to interact with such a large number of people. And I also thank the RUSA, University College of Law, and the other members of the academic and technical team for making this program, in fact, maybe enjoyable. Thank you.
Sir, now I request Mr. A. Srinivas Rao to please propose vote of thanks to Professor G.P. Reddy.
Good evening, sir. And it's a privilege to render this vote of thanks. And you have delivered an excellent lecture today, sir, as usual. Made this IPR more interesting as you proposed and rendered the session. So talking about the introduction quotation which you have quoted at the start of the session, that more than a century rich person was an oil worker. So now after the session, I wish that all the participants may become rich not only by their knowledge gained here, but also by wealth transformed by their intellectual property. So moreover, you elaborated about the compulsory licensing effect, which is more appropriate at this time of pandemic, wherein more of the corporates are trying to come up with their own innovations. And the dichotomy which you have presented in between the subject of IPR and its teaching was so fine-tuned that it was really excellent. The attributes of a teacher, IP teacher, was also very interesting theory, sir, which you have included in your slides, fortunately for everyone. Having said that, I would also like to say a big thank you to you once again for being present here and disseminating your valuable knowledge to the participants. Understanding the fact that the IP is a subject which cannot be covered in a precise session, you have designed this entire session in such a way that the entire ecosystem of IP can be covered, and you have given various pointers to the participants to study and practice IP after this session. So this has become a crash course for all the participants, sir. So moreover, you made this session more harmonious and humorous filled with your statement saying that during this during this pandemic, the online sessions are being so organized and they're charging very huge amount of the fees, wherein the parents are learning and kids are only taking rest. So thank you for allocating your precious time, sir, from your busy schedule, as I know, and indicating the team that the subject requires a lot of attention and research. Thank you, sir. Thank you for this thank you note. And I am privileged to give you this thank you note. And sir is my IPR guru, and proud to say this. Thank you in before of the participants. And thank you all the participants for being here.